Hello everyone, thanks for joining me yet again for another day in the life of a full-time cabinet maker. Today, a cabinet maker attempts furniture.
Yeah, Mulder's helping me figure out some of the math on this.
There's our circle.
Showing me that it's better actually to figure an 1.5 inch overhang. Because see, the thing is, we're going to build this all out of solid hardwood, but we're not going to make the whole thing double thickness. We're going to do a little bit of trickery here, and that we're going to just make the outside perimeter double thickness, so it's going to look like it's an 1.5 inch thick, but really it's just going to be 3/4 thick. And it really doesn't need to be any thicker because there's going to be plenty of support underneath it. Integrity, rigidity, and fluidity, and compatibility, right, Mulder? No, 3 different pieces that make up the base of the desk. We have this 12-inch piece, end panels on both sides, all made out of solid walnut hardwood center panels, walnut applied molding, walnut hardwood dovetail drawers, walnut hardwood everywhere. Take a shot every time I say walnut hardwood. We have the middle support piece, which is just going to be some storage underneath the knee space. Most of this desk is knee space. It's going to go across the back and then jut out in the shape of a T over here. We'll then have a center support, which will be made out of these 2 panels that will sit out as such. So there is the shape of the desk. This is going to then be a radiused front. Someone can sit here, and someone can sit here. Drawers, storage. Otherwise, that's just wasted space. So not only will it look nice from underneath, in that it will have the panels and the doors, but it will also just be extra storage underneath the knee space, which would otherwise just be wasted space. So then what I've done here is laid out my plan for the top. It's going to be 96 for the desk. So I'm doing 1.5 inch overhang on each side, 99 total, 37.5. 37.5. The grain's going to be running this way. This is then going to be radius, mitered like this, going here and here. I'm using 1/4 inch plywood to essentially do a template to help me in laying out my hardwood planks. Screw these in place as I'm spacing this out, 24 inches. Back side is all screwed in. So now I'm going to line up my middle here. I just want to make sure these are square. This is just the initial template for layout purposes. We're going to lay out the planks, so it's not super critical as we're going to be testing this on our actual planks once they're all glued together. But this is just to kind of help lay out the material. So here we're just going to draw a line from that center point I marked to this corner. And we'll do the same over here. And this is just going to give us a visual now. Here we're going to have the grain running this way on this piece. We're then going to cut these angles in those planks of wood, and then they're going to meet these planks here. Now here we will have our radiused front, the pivot point on the very end of this template piece as we make our radius. Around. And around. There's our circle. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere here. Let's just make a full circle here. Now it's time to select the walnut. This is the fun part. So here we have our walnut hardwood planks, and we're going to lay them over the template just to do some color matching and decide what plank is going to go where. But wow, that looks pretty cool. our walnut planks laid out. This is not their final resting place, but we just brought them over just to get an initial look. As you remember, the template underneath has the radius, and also it has our cuts here and there, where the grain, I'm going to try to match it as best as I can. Laid out the planks on the back side of the desk, color matched everything as well as I could with the material I have. I think it's turning out pretty great. I have the back plank in place. Sometimes you have to work with the material you have. This back plank was the only piece I had that was long enough to stretch the whole distance. So the middle ones I had to stretch to get them to be the length that I need. And fortunately I was able to by cutting them in the middle, because here is going to be our cut. There, and then this is going to have a point coming in here to meet them. Have this clamped to the back just so I can line everything up and get a visual. I did my best also to alternate the boards. We have the ring going up and then down and up, but then also up again. So sometimes you can't because the other side of the plank didn't look very good. Did as many as I could, doing that alternating method between the biscuit joining, the glue, and fastening to the desk. It's not gonna have a lot of ability to bow or cup. Everything is sitting nice and flat. The ring going up and then down. That one is down, but that's up. So some alternate, some I had to do what I did based on color and what was the cleanest and best looking side of the plank. Some pretty interesting grain here. Why use walnut if you don't want interesting grain? And that's going to be cut to a point and then set in here. I kept the planks all the same width. Some are a little off, but I think it will be okay. Occasionally you have to cut around a piece of sap or not. Obviously the priority is making these as clean as they can be. These are still individual planks. Time to cut the biscuit slots and then glue all these together. So next I'm going to mark the line. Probably gonna put 3 rows of biscuits on each side. So that's 3 feet. One every foot, 1, 2, 3. This is just to help with alignment when I'm clamping. The top is now broken into 3 manageable sections, which is going to make clamping that much easier. So we're going to clamp up this, that, then we're going to make the cut here, and then we're going to clamp up that and cut it at a point there. Then we'll do the radius. All right, so now that I've marked my lines where I'm going to put the biscuits, I'm just going to have a lot of repetitive work to do as I put the biscuit slots into each plank. Now that all the biscuit slots are cut, we're going to go ahead and start with the middle section that's going to be radius. We're going to get this all glued up first. We're going to put glue in each of these slots. Got to make sure all the boards are oriented correctly. Don't want to mess that up. And you got to really move fast. We don't need more in those because that goes to there. Then we'll flip this around, put them in here. There it is. There it is. There it is. Well, they're biscuits. There it is. Got a little squeeze out in each one of these. Have that, and then flip up this one. Set them in place. These are all the biscuits in place. Now I'm going to glue the top of each. And just going to make sure the whole surface is covered. Again, just make sure every part has been touched by glue. It goes down this way, and then this will go down that way. But first, we'll add the glue to this one. They go together. There we go. Okay, they keep moving. And then the last one. All right, make sure that's all flat at the end. Now it's time to clamp it up. All right, here's the first one. Get the glue squeeze out there. Yeah, that's going together very nice. And then the last one, make sure these are all lined up here. That's good. Actually, there is one more in the very end there. All right. That is all glued up. That went together quite well. Fortunately, none of these were too bowed or warped. With the help of those biscuits, it just kept everything aligned, which is the whole purpose of them. They really don't add anything as far as the strength of the top and the end. Once the glue dries, that is what holds each plank together, but it really helps. Look at that. Keep it all flat and aligned for your glue up. So would highly recommend. The middle section, it's over there drying. Are you panning over to? Now that we've clamped up the middle section, which is drying over there, we're gonna go to one of the back sections. We're going to do the right side first. Just like before, we just wanna move quickly. All right. We have to remember our orientation as we're doing this. This is the front, that's the back. This is going to be the right side of the desk, which is going to be flat. These need to be perfectly lined up on this side. This side doesn't matter, they're different lengths, as I will be cutting this at an angle. I need to get one of those fancy glue brushes that I see people use. But for now, I'm just using my finger. It works, although it involves a lot of hand washing afterwards. Makes you very much in tuned with the work. Pull that together. That went together nice. And then the final one. This one was a little more bowed, so gotta kind of fight it a little bit. Show it who's boss. I am. Right?
Right. Yes, you. Of course.
Okay. Wanting to make sure the ends come together nicely. This is oversized, so I'm gonna be actually trimming about a ½ inch off when all is said and done. When all is done and said. Okay. Around like that. Bar clamps work great for this. I didn't fully tighten that side yet. I'm just getting everything in place. That's looking good. Yeah, people love that glue squeeze out. They love it. All right. Round 2 complete. And there's our result. Off camera, I went ahead and glued together this very important piece. And if you're curious what this is for, stick around and find out. It is 14 inches by 24 inches, 5-inch planks, just like our top. I have this piece of wood on here holding it down just to make sure it doesn't buckle as it's drying. All right, we're getting there. We do need to keep the pace up. You always got to be aware that the glue is drying, so the clock is ticking. The glue is drying from the moment it comes out of that bottle. Just like from the moment we're born, we're dying. The glue is drying while we are dying. They're coming together here. Very satisfying. And there we go. The final one. I don't think I forgot to put glue in any of these. See, this is all aligned here. Those are different sizes because that's going to be cut. So we'll do what we've been doing. They don't need to be squeezed very tight, just lightly, just to make sure that the very edges of the planks are aligned as we're clamping them. Now we want that to sit flat against the bar. Perfect. These are all aligned as I'm squeezing it tight. That's a little bit up. It's good to have strong fingers. Yeah, you got to work your fingers out whenever you can so they're plenty strong for when you need them. And there we have our final desk surface glued up. Look at that. Nice and flat yet again. Got the other ones in the background just waiting to be sanded. What a harmonious event. And Mulder joins the celebration. As those are drying, we've taken the first one out of clamps. Look at that, sitting where it's going to end up. And as I said before, this has a purpose over here. So this piece is going to be glued to the underside of the end of this. I may have said earlier in the video, I can't remember, but the goal is for this to look like it's 1.5 inches thick. Even though it is all 3/4 thick, the look from the face of it all the way around is going to be 1.5 inches. So I will be gluing strips of 1.5 inches thick by 1.5 inches because it's gonna have 1.5 inches overhang. So 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches blocks basically along the perimeter edge. But then since this is radiused, this needs to have this whole block glued, which is gonna be 14 inches in. The radius starts at 12. I'll show all this as it unfolds, but that will allow me to cut the radius and not worry about cutting past my strip and giving it the full radius look. And when you look underneath, you'll see that, which is also going to have a slot, which is going to hold this support panel. You'll see soon enough. I mean, I've made, I guess, similar things, but never really anything quite like this. Being a cabinet maker, you don't really make too many furniture pieces. I figured I would share the process as I thought to do it. Perhaps there's some better ways, and people can always feel free to share in the comments if they have any tips, tricks, or suggestions. I'm always trying to learn and improve my skills every day. I've done things over the years that have helped me to sort of accumulate the skills necessary to do this, but I have to say I don't know that I've made anything quite exactly like this before. And a lot of the cabinets we make, of course, just have stone tops. So it was really nice to come across this project where I was pushed to broaden my horizons and learn some new tricks, and this is what I came up with. And I'm hoping it will all turn out well in the end, and so far I'm pleased with the progress. This program has been brought to you by Unida Enterprises. Belt sandpaper. Also by Porter Cable, the Porter Cable belt sander. And then we have a new Porter Cable router that we'll be using to cut our radius. That mean machine there. Just gonna put a new belt on this belt sander. Goes up like that, and flip it off. And then, like the other larger belt sander, it is directional. So push that in, and like that. That's it. And now we're going to do a little belt sand action. I'm going to start with the middle section, and this is the underside. This is not the top. So we're just going to first belt sand the bottom. It's not been orbital sanded yet, just with the belt sander, just to flatten it all out. Next, I'm going to glue this bottom piece. So then, for those who stay tuned, they'll get to the fun part of cutting the radius. I'm very excited to see that come together, and I hope you are too. This is the bottom side of the middle desk top. I'm going to glue this piece here. That's going to create our 1.5 inch thickness and also allow us to cut the radius. I'm then going to be putting a perimeter around the rest of the top that's going to continue 1.5 inches all the way around. But first, I'm going to cut out a notch in this because I'm going to use that as a resting point for this paneled leg. So this piece is going to be 1.5 inches thick. This is not the finished look. These are two panels sandwiched together. However, I will be mitering each edge and putting on face piece that will be mitered. So it will look like a continuous piece all the way around. We're going to create a notch for that leg to sit in. So let's do that now. I'm going to go cut these sides on the table saw because that's easier. As well. So drop your blade all the way down, turn it on, and raise it up. And just like that, we have our notch. Preferred to do that over using the bandsaw because these are now perfectly straight lines. So now I'm going to apply a generous amount of glue on the back side of this piece. First around the perimeter. Kind of want to stay away from there. I don't want a bunch of squeeze out, but I do want squeeze out along the edge. I'm going to flip that around. We're just going to line it up. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. This is all oversized and will be trimmed down. Now we're going to go ahead and clamp it up. I'll use some of these squeeze clamps to hold it in place. It's going to want to shift a little on you with all that glue under there. You can bring it out. It's all feeling good. Got to trust those fingers. Fingertips feel all and know all. And that's going to put pressure down in the middle. Oh, look at that. It's cracking. That's okay. It accomplished the goal. There we go. We got that stretcher there, applying pressure to the middle. We have our slot. I'm happy. Mulder's happy. Mulder is sitting like a sphinx standing guard. Now that we have glued this block onto the bottom, our middle section is ready to cut the radius. So first we're going to practice it on our template, which is underneath. We did this before. This is going to be a pattern cutting router bit that we're going to use this MDF 1/4 inch arm that's going to swing with the router attached. So we're going to find our pivot point, which is going to be a little different than the pivot point we used to draw the line. But before let's get to our unboxing of our new Porter cable router. It's always good to have a supply of routers. We do already have about 4 of these, but it's always good to have another one. Look at that. Fresh and new. Yeah, I've always liked the Porter cable routers. They seem to work well for our needs. I don't know if they're the best, but they get the job done. I'm going to use the 1/2 inch collet, 1/2 inch shank, freshly sharpened. You always want to go all the way in and then pull it out just a little. And here our hole is just a little bit bigger than the pattern cutting router bit. But when we make our first pass, we only want it to go maybe a 1/4 inch, because the goal is going to be, we're just going to do a single pass a little bit into this piece. Then I'm going to take a jigsaw and cut just outside of my line all the way around, and then flip it the other way and use my flush trim router, and this bearing will run on the cut that this is going to make. So you'll see, this way I'm going to be able to get a perfect radius. As where if I tried to just do this with my jigsaw or a bandsaw, it would inevitably be wobbly. So this first cut is just to leave a little path for this router bit from the other side to ride on. So here's a neat little thing you can do with your router. I'm sure many people know of this little trick where you can take the top off and then you can fasten it to this arm that we're going to be using. So first I'm going to want to center it here, align the holes to where they're going to fall within this MDF, and then we're just going to flip it around and then we can screw it on. Oh, there we go. We're just going to align it in such a way where the holes will fall on the MDF, and also we need this hole in the center of that center hole. And we're just going to mark the center of each hole. Go right on each of those holes. I should have used a wider piece of MDF, but this is what I had laying around. So I definitely advise use a wider piece of MDF, just so you're not right on the edge. So there we go, we're recreating this, and we can then attach it to this. And then we take the screws that it came with. You want to make sure it's totally flush and actually a little bit set in, so it's not sticking up at all, or you can scrape on the work. There we go. We've made sure that the screws are sunk in. We'll just hit it with our sandpaper. We have a nice smooth surface there. And then now our router can come out. Come out to play, router bit. Okay, we're actually just going to start with just a very minimal amount for the first cut. So now we're going to use our square and mark exactly where the bit is going to hit. And from that point, based on our template here, we want it to be 12 inches. This line, we measure 12 inches. And then we go to the center, 4.5, so we're at 2 1/4. We should be sitting, yep, with our holes aligned. There's our hole. We're exactly where we need to be. Now let's just do a test run and cut out this template. There we go. And this is how the router will work to cut our perfect radius. So let's give it a try. And there we have our radius. So now let's do it for real. Let's put this in place. Check it both ways. We want to be exactly in the middle here. That's the exact center. So now we have our hole. That's going to be the pivot point. We're going to take our screw. We're going to check this. Make sure that's where we want it to be. Here's our router bit. That is exactly where we want it. Let's just make sure it's that way on the other side. As it comes around to the other side, also exactly where we want it. All right, here we go. Now we're going to do our first pass of cutting the radius. Again, this is the underside. We're just going to cut a little channel about an 1/8 inch deep. Then we'll go a little deeper, make it a 1/4 inch deep. And then we can jigsaw it and then flip it around and flush trim it from the other side. And that bearing will run on the path that this creates. So let's give it a try. I'm gonna turn it on. Yeah, I think we're okay. All right, we're doing great so far. Look at that, awesome. I'm getting a little concerned about possible blowout here, so I'm gonna move it out here and then go in, and then the two paths can meet. Oh yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, there we go. There is our radius. Everything coming together. I'm just gonna go a little bit deeper, again, just so my flush trimmer bearing will have something to ride on. Now I'm gonna adjust the depth, just go a little bit deeper, and let's do it again. All right, so next we're just gonna take the jigsaw and we're gonna stay away from this line. We do not wanna touch this line, but we just wanna take off as much material as we can without touching that line. That's good enough. We trimmed some of that excess. So now we're going to flip it around and run our flush trimmer, which bearing will run on our previous cut. Just want to make sure our flush trimmer has enough cutter that's going to cut what's left while the bearing is also in the spot that we want it to be. So it looks like right there is the spot. This is the top, and we're just going to trust what we've done so far is right, because this is going to follow what we did. I do want to say, you'll want to make a couple passes when you do something like this. We don't want to try to take off too much at once. So I'm just going to keep going back and forth till I'm even with that previous line. And there we have the front of our desk. The radius is complete. Look at that, 1.5 inches thick. It needs some sanding now, of course. And then we're just going to continue that 1.5 inches across the rest as well. Routing this, everything went pretty smooth, except there was one spot that got a little rough, as you can see. Eesh. Sometimes you just never know what you're going to hit as far as a difficult piece of grain. I'm going to show you a little trick to swell up this wood and remedy this situation. Iron hot and a wet paper towel, and just get this soaking wet. You just want it to soak into that grain and just let it sit. Maybe sit up here so it drains down. Soak into that grain. And that's going to cause the wood to swell. It's going to take a couple passes, but it can come out. So I'm just going to sit here and use this as a time of rest and reflection as I just continue to soak this and continue to pull that grain out. You really want to get a lot of steam in there. Able to get it quite a bit better. It's still there. This can be sanded out at this point, so I'm not too worried about it. So here is our progress. You can see it coming together now. I'm glad I went with the thicker 1.5 inch look. That's really going to pay off here. I really like that versus just keeping it 3/4. We are now going to make these cuts to join this all together. This line here, mark from our center line to the intersect point. Then we're going to draw a line on this side. And now we need to match that line on these pieces. I went ahead and belt sanded the backside of these two tops, since we already belt sanded the underside of this middle one. Now I can flip these over. I'm just going to go ahead and lightly belt sand the face. We're going to do a final round of sanding later, but I'm just going to do a quick belt sanding of the faces before I make these cuts. So we have our mark down here at the face, and I'm going to go from this back corner, which is going to match up with that. Now we're going to do the same over here. Now we're going to use a product called the track saw. It's a very useful device. And we're just going to put the track on the line we just drew, and then we can make our cuts. I went nice and slow to avoid any tear out. So that is a nice clean cut right there. Next piece, set that in place. Set it on the line. And then there's that. Just right on our line once again. Now this comes off. Sort of like a teardrop. And now it's time for the part that many will find cringeworthy. I'm going to take this beautiful walnut hardwood top And yes, I'm going to put pocket screws in it because that is fast. And I'm going to join all 3 of these by cutting pocket screw holes along this side. Before we cut the pocket screw holes, let's get a look at how this all is going to come together. There is a little color difference here in this shot simply because those have been sanded, this has not been sanded. These will come together. Oh yeah. What I do with pocket screw holes, almost like I'm threading a needle. So you want to alternate holes. First, I'm going to make sure no part of the hole gets past this point because this under section is going to be skinned. This is not. Pocket screw, that's going to go in there. I want to make sure don't go past that line. And then I'm just going to alternate. There. See, yeah. To there. Yep. There's our pocket screw holes on this piece. And I can then take it over to the face frame table where I can lay that down. And that's where I can assemble the top. Glue this up, spread that around. So here we have the corner here. We see that it's all square. And then I can take these clamps and clamp everything down. Yeah, perfect. And there we have it. This side is screwed together. Putting the glue on this one. Back to the drawing board. There we go. That's good. Getting a little closer. We have this leg sitting in its slot. Now let's just do a quick belt sand of the whole surface, and then we're gonna add on the rest of the 1.5 inch thickness all the way around. I've left a spot for each cabinet. These 2 cabinets are gonna go here and there. So as I said, the pocket screw holes will be covered up. This cabinet in the middle will be going here, and then the rest is skinned with 1/4 inch plywood. I then have a support piece growing across the bottom there. This is all finished off like this, and then we have that double thickness look all the way around. I have this running long, and I'm going to take the track saw at the end to cut that to size. All right, so the bottom side has now been sanded. So you see how each spot is where the cabinet is going to sit, and then this is going to come down on the leg. All right, now we're starting to see the look. Now it looks like it's all 1.5 inches thick. This is how it all sits together. All finished looking. And that's where the leg sits. The leg is not finished yet. I'm going to take the track saw and trim the end to its final length. Sand the front edge, and then I'm going to do a 1/4 inch round over on the top and the bottom. We're taking this 37.5, 37.5. All right, and we're ready to make our cut. Snip that off. All right, so for this one, there is our end. So now I'm going to use the Festool square sander. Let's get to it. Yeah, that works really nice for this. This is the first time I've used this sander. Definitely better than the orbital round sander for doing this front. Here I've taken the desktop off the desk. It's nearly complete. All I need to do now is put a 1/4 inch round over on the top and the bottom. 1/4 inch bit in. Softens that edge up in just the right way. It'll be better for sitting at the desk without cutting your arms on that sharp top. I'm just going to come in here and clean out these corners. All right, so here is the bottom. Next, what we're going to do is finish making this leg, which is going to be screwed in to here. Molder, now we are going to miter these panels. We're going to put a miter on both sides of both panels. Then we're going to rip 2 pieces at 2 inches wide by 30 1/4 tall, which is the height of these 2 panels here. I'm going to add a piece of 1/4 inch between the 2 panels, just because they are 13/16 thick. The 2 of them together isn't going to get me to the 2 inch thickness I want. So I'm just going to sandwich this between, bring that out so that I can put them all together like that. The green masking tape is stickier than the blue and has a little bit of a stretch to it. coming together nicely. Plenty of glue squeeze out there, showing that we have a nice tight fit. Both sides. Stand it up. Go to the other side. And there we have our leg. Now we'll dial in the lower cabinets that make up the base of the desk. These are already assembled, but I've shown cabinet assembly on numerous other videos. I'll show that again in another video. But I wanted the focus of this to be seeing the whole piece come together, as well as focusing on the desktop. There's only so much you can focus on in one video, I think. Otherwise, it's just going to get way too long. These are our Blum Movento slides, and here they have the ability to clip on a push to open tip-on mechanism, which that's these here. Tip-on Blum. So these look like. And these will clip onto those, so we'll get to those in a minute. Walnut dovetail drawers. These are the locking devices. They have side-to-side adjustment as well as up and down. Yeah, so I found the Movento do glide a bit smoother than the Blum tandems that we also sometimes use. These are a little more expensive. Clip that in place. Yeah, Blum Movento. So we're gonna put the doors on, scribe fit those in. I do have a little bit of a reveal just because I have shelf pins here, and I think it looks nicer to kind of hide that behind the reveal. Walnut blocks to fur it out to the face frame. Then have the top built all the way across here because we're going to use these tip-on push to open bumpers. Will be screwed up here and here for each door so that the doors can be pushed to open like that. And push, and it pops it out. Then we're gonna scribe fit and attach the drawer fronts. Get this all dialed in. Gotta screw the hinge plates on, my 9mm hinge plates, my half crank hinges. Went ahead and screwed on my 9mm Blum hinge plates. Tip-on mechanisms. Good boy. All right, so now that the door's in the opening, I'm gonna mark this with a pencil with my little scribe tool here. There's my pencil line. Perfect. Now to get to the next one, just needs a little bit of shaving. Look at that. Yeah, that's a nice tight fit. But this is going to be sprayed clear. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and fasten the drawer fronts, which I did the same thing to. The reason I sand to fit is because I just find that's the best way to get a tight fit, by having the fronts a little oversized and tight in the opening, and then I sand them down just ever so slightly to get that perfectly tight fit. And for those who have made it this far in the video, I thank you for watching. And if you have not done so already, please subscribe and help grow this channel. It's a lot of work, but I do very much enjoy it. This particular piece is for a very special client, someone who's helped me out quite a bit over the past year. And so I just really want to make sure this is a cut above. If you're watching, you know who you are. I thank you very much. Very grateful for anyone who helped me, and I don't ever forget who has helped me. But as I've said many times, this is not a furniture making channel, but I'm doing my best to make this as close to furniture as possible. It's definitely a high grade furniture style cabinet, but pretty close to furniture, I think. So just using the adjustment here to get it just right. And it is set in just a little bit more than I would like. I obviously want to bring that out to being flush, but because we're doing the push to open, which I'll get to next, there is some adjustability that will push that forward and backward a little bit. So I don't need to worry about that. That will be remedied very soon. on that topic, as I'm continuing right along here of help and getting help from people, it is an important part of all of our journey because we don't exist in a vacuum. We're always crossing paths with people along the way, and there's definitely people along the way who have, helped play pivotal roles in my path and development, and I do like to give credit where that is due. Sometimes when you're striving to make it and survive, it can be difficult out there. And sometimes you just need that one break, someone to just provide that opportunity for you that makes all the difference. Obviously, I'm not talking about just handing something over. Nothing's ever been handed to me. Nothing's ever been free. It's all been a tremendous amount of work. But still, it just takes that pivotal situation that provides various breakthroughs in one's life. I do think the term self-made is a bit overused. I mean, first of all, I didn't create myself. I was created by God in the exact moment and situation and all the opportunities that have come up. I don't believe in coincidence. And then all those you come in contact with along the way. And then there's that old saying, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. You got to be out there doing it. Then it's amazing what will come along, and you got to be ready to seize those opportunities. But anyway, enough rambling. Let's get this finished. Now let's go ahead and put in these tip-on push-to-open mechanisms. Clip, just like that. I'm only doing it on one side because it's too narrow for both. These are quite narrow drawers, but it seems to work fine with just using one push-to-open mechanism. Doesn't affect any of the functionality. See, when I first came back, I called myself the dumbest cabinet channel on all of YouTube. And my wife, she didn't like that very much. Bless her heart, she's just the sweetest person you could ever meet. She doesn't like my self-deprecating humor. But I've learned that it's often better to be perceived as the dumbest one in the room because you'll often be underestimated. And being underestimated has always been my favorite place to be because then you have the upper hand. Just stay quiet and soak everything up. Always watching, always waiting, always working. The three support cabinets are together. This is our leg. Once I can get all this sticky green tape off, I can sand this up. Our completed leg, we're going to screw it in right here. But all that being said, sometimes I genuinely do feel incredibly stupid. Just part of figuring things out in life, I suppose. So many times, especially early in my career, I'm faced with a situation where someone wants you to make something you've never made, or you have an opportunity to do something you've never done, and you just tell yourself, well, I'm gonna figure it out. And I've always had that mindset, I'm just gonna figure it out. But I'm definitely always still figuring many things out. Probably some things that I should already know. In the end, I find persistence really is the key. You just never stop. You just keep going. Eventually you'll figure it out. That top is sanded. Have it up here at eye level. With the light shining on it, helps me to see more clearly. Around the corner here. Not bad for a cabinet maker. Desktop is flat. Other than that, there's just not much else to say.